So you get a little pop-up that says we're going live. And here we are. So welcome to Book Club, everyone. Thank you so much for your patience whilst I dealt with our new setup again. This has been the year of me telling you thank you for your patience while we deal with technology issues, and I'm so grateful for that. So welcome to Book Club, everyone. It is October, and we are discussing a wonderful book, in my opinion. I clearly like this book, but we're discussing Dreadnought by Cherie Priest, and I am so happy to get into it. Our author is not joining us this month, which means that we are all going to be having this wonderful conversation together, and I am very excited. So, first of all, I'd like to go around the room, and if everyone could just introduce themselves with your name, and please share one thing you liked about the book. Whether you liked the book overall or not, we will get into that. But right now, we're just sharing one thing you liked about it. And it can be very trivial. If you didn't like it, you can talk about how you liked the art or the feel of the paper. This is just warming us up. So, dear Scone Mistress, it's so good to have you back with us. Would you introduce yourself and share a thing you liked?
Hello, I'm Robin, known as the Scone Mistress. I didn't get very far into the book, but I did read some of it, and I like that the premise of the book is shit magnet nurse tries to go on trip. Everywhere she goes. Uh, excuse me, you're a nurse. We need you. And then literally, it's just everyone roll for encounters. Oh, you rolled a crit fail, you rolled a crit fail, you rolled a crit fail. Oh, you rolled a crit fail as well. Oh, well, okay. Nurse, you rolled a crit 20. Okay, you will survive.
Honestly, this should be like the little blurb on the interwebs. Shit magnet nurse. Wonderful. Thank you, Scott Mistress. All right, my dear Christina. Hello, my friend. What a delightful chapeau you're wearing. Very
I was
timely.
appropriate for the month.
It is. It is.
I saw so many lovely chapeaus left. I have to join in. So I'm Christina, also known as Danaeus. And I am like two-thirds of the way through the book, through the audio drama. So not the full book, but I got the story. I'm really enjoying the acting in the audio drama. Took me a second to settle in, but once I did, they're doing a really nice job. So
Mm.
um, story-wise, I like the feel of the era. There are these little bits of information periodically just really make you feel like you're in a real space, if that makes sense. I'm not just slamming through it. The little details pop up here and there that just make it feel a little more vibrant as she's telling the story of the world.
So, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Danaeus. Thank you, my darling. All right, Chuck, it's so good to have you back with us. May I say I've been delighted that you came and that you've kept coming back. It's been wonderful to have you become a regular member of the book gang, as it were.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate the warm welcome and kind words, and thank you for setting this up and organizing it. It's no easy feat, I know, but and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome. So I enjoyed the book. I got all the way through it, and I like how it's so I like there's vernacular in it. The how how the nurse is she's getting everybody's accent. And you can almost feel the different accents. I can almost hear the different accents from people. She's like, I recognize they're from Ohio, or they're from Kentucky, or she that has gone to Tennessee and all these things. And when the Texan comes up, she's like, oh, he's definitely not from the this part. And then how the Mexican and Inquisitors,
Mhm.
is that what they are?
Uh, well, he's a ranger, right?
Yeah, the Texan, but the two
Oh,
Mexican visitors,
inspectors.
inspectors,
No.
that's it,
Yeah,
yes.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, you could definitely get all the I could feel like I was hearing that they're different talks and languages and things.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, no, she uses language beautifully that way to really
Mhm.
set a feel for the region. I think she's stunning. Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, what a great comment. Thank you, Chuck. And also, I know Danaeus mentioned that she has been listening to the audio drama. If you like audiobooks, the audio drama does a wonderful job of capturing the diversity of accents, and the performers do just an excellent job of it. So, highly recommend. All right, Karen, my darling. Hello. Good morning. I know it's terribly brutally early where you are, so thank you for joining us.
Not so bad today because we've got daylight savings, which I
Oh,
don't like. So
oh.
it's yeah, 10 o'clock was a decent start. So,
All right. Well, that's better.
so I'm Karen and I'm from South Australia, a bit of a ringer. And I'm not a really big zombie fan, but I actually did enjoy the book mostly because of the way she writes and her voice.
Yeah.
And a lot of the medical stuff felt right.
Yeah.
From a medical background, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so good.
So yeah. But I'm one for, if I like the voice, I'll read it, and if I don't like the voice, well, yeah. So
Well, and she has a wonderful
writing.
Sherry Priest is a wonderful writer, so
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yes.
good.
So there you go. So I
Yeah,
liked it.
wonderful. Thank you. All right. Lady June Squill, hello, my darling.
Oh, hello. Happy afternoon to you.
Happy afternoon.
Okay. I am June, or Lady June Squirrel. And what I'm supposed to say something I liked about the book?
Yes.
Well, I will say that my favorite character is the Ranger, Horatio Corman. And he shows up in almost all of the rest of the books too. In fact, the next one is my favorite of the books, Ganymede, because it's set in damn, you know that that.
Is it New Orleans?
New Orleans.
Yes, it's set in New Orleans. Damn, why could I not remember that? New Orleans, yes. So anyway, I highly recommend going on to the second. I've read them all before, of course. Also, I want to mention that compilation of her writing.
Yes.
But I'll get to that next time.
Absolutely wonderful. We'll talk about it a little bit. And this is part of a bigger series. So if you've enjoyed Dreadnought, it's the second full-length novel in the series. We sort of jumped over Bone Shaker because I have presented it multiple times for book club, and I thought surely most people have read it and are tired of it, but I've discovered that Bill, at least, has not read Bone Shaker, so we may have to read it regardless. I highly recommend it to you. All right, David, hello, welcome to book club.
Hi, glad to be here. David Hawk, also known as David Hawk. I love this book. I had to jump in when I saw you were doing it. So loved Bone Shaker, and then went on and read the 1.1. I forget what that is. The name of that one.
Clementine.
Yes, exactly. Clementine was good. Got into Dreadnought, could not put it down. Did it audio a couple times, and I just finished reading the Dead Tree version again. It literally has everything. It has airships, it has walkers, it has an alternative version of the Civil War, it has steam trains, it has war trains, it has zombies, it has racial tensions, it has literally everything. So yeah, just love this one. And Ganymede, love that one too. I think I've been most of the way through the series. So,
excellent.
But Dreadnought and Ganymede, probably my favorites. Yeah, her, I love how Cherry brings in, actual history into her books.
Yeah, very
like
thoughtful.
I said, yeah, this one's got absolutely everything. Love it. Just absolutely love it.
Well, David, I'm so happy that we're doing this book. So we've lured you in to our community to discuss it. That's
Completely.
to our advantage. But also I'm delighted because you, Lady June Squirrel, and I have read the books. And so we can, encourage everyone who hasn't yet to do so.
Oh
So
yeah, absolutely. Like I
no,
said, if you get, they're all great. Yeah, I think I kind of fell out on the last one where it was in Texas with the hotel, and I forget what the name of that one is, Jakarta or something like
Fiddleheads.
that. No, Fiddlehead's good. I like that one too.
Oh, so we've got Inexplicables.
Inexplicables, and then it's the last one. Starts with a J, Jakarta or something like
Oh,
that.
that's that Jacaranda.
Yes, that one.
I forgot about Jacaranda. Oh
Yeah,
my
I didn't.
goodness.
I got to be honest. I had a hard time getting through that one. So,
Okay.
but yeah, the first 4 or 5, yeah, absolutely love them. Love them.
Right.
Like I said, I started with Bone Shaker, and I love how the story continues. And literally, this one has everything in it, and I just absolutely love it. So,
Thank you, David.
yeah.
Oh, great. Wonderful. All right. Well, we're going to have a rollicking conversation, clearly. Laura, hello, my friend. How good to see you. We'll come back to you while you figure out your mic. Are you able to?
I figured
you
it
got
out.
it. All right,
Yeah.
good.
Okay. It wasn't working correctly for some reason for a second there. But yeah, I finished the audio version, and I had read or listened to the audio version of Bone Shaker before, and I really liked both of them. And I liked the way that it's second in the series, but it is a standalone book as well.
Mhm.
Like you don't have to have read Bone Shaker to read
Right.
Dreadnought at all. Although I guess it would be helpful at the very end if you knew kind of what was going on.
It
But
provides some additional context, but you
yeah,
don't have to have it.
yeah. And I really like the character of Mercy. I really like the nurse character. She is great. And
She's a great character.
yeah.
Ah, wonderful. All right. Thank you, Laura. Alicia, my friend, I'm coming for you now.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. My name is Lisha Rab. And this book was tough for me because it started very slow for me. But one thing that I liked and one thing I appreciate is that all of the characters had their own voice, and you kind of knew, even if you heard it out of context, you would know who was speaking based on how they spoke.
Yeah.
And it had a sense of regionalism, which I know is hard to do in a book when you have so many characters and they're all kind of from all over. So I thought I really liked that part, that everyone had their own circle, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's a great way of describing it. Also, it fishtails. It dovetails with what Chuck was talking about as well. So wonderful.
Yeah, it like everyone has their own voice, but the way they interact is kind of interesting.
Excellent. Yeah.
Or don't, as the case may be.
Or don't. Yes. Absolutely.
You're a useless twat. I don't want to deal with you.
We're not going to deal with you. So sorry. We have other things to do. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Cindy Joy, are you able to chat, my friends?
I'm able to chat, but not able to share my image. So I'm Cindy Joy, first name Cindy, last name Joy, because I know that's confusing. And what else was I supposed to do? Yeah, just call me Cindy.
Yeah, just tell us something
something I loved about the book.
Something you liked about the book.
I liked the strong female characters, and I liked Miss Clay and how she just really ran over people. and force them to do what she wanted to do because she was curious and she was not going to sit back and just take care of her aunt who didn't need taking care of.
Yeah. Yeah, she's a pip. She's a pip, Miss Clay is. Yeah, really interesting character. Excellent. Thank you, Cindy.
And I finished the dramatized audiobook and I read the book too. And I read Bone Shaker before because I missed Bone Shaker. I think you did it last year for book club.
I think so, maybe. Or
yeah, and I missed that month. So
yeah, it might have been a couple of years ago.
You know, not a standalone part of a series. I needed to read that one first. So
yeah,
I spent a lot of time with Cherie Priest this month.
she's a good flavor for October, I think.
Yeah,
so,
she really is. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, thank you, Cindy.
Welcome.
Alan, my friend, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you very much.
So good to see you.
Yes, I enjoyed this book. I did the audio dramatization, having read the original long form a couple of years ago, and I thought it'd be more fun to try a different version. I'd have to say my favorite thing about the book is Robin's comment. I thought that was just really brilliant, and I enjoyed overall. I just enjoyed the book, and I like another journey into the world of SAP.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. The SAP. Oh, thank you, Alan. Thanks for bringing that up too. All right, Bill, my friends and co-host. Hello, Bill.
Hello. So I've read other stuff by Cherie Priest, but not, and this is the first of her steampunk books that I've read, and I liked it a lot. And I also really I think I appreciated most the character of the Texas Ranger. I loved his sort of moral framework. It's like, yeah, well, I'm not going to shoot at, the Southerners, but, I'm also not going to help them. I'm not really going to help you either. So I was laughing every time just about every time he opened his mouth.
He's very pragmatic fellow, right?
Very pragmatic, yeah.
Alicia says the Ranger is so Briscoe County Jr., and he does have some of those vibes, doesn't he? Yeah.
He kind of does, yeah. And oh boy, I mean, I enjoyed this novel a lot, and it basically sold me on going back and reading Bone Shaker.
Yeah.
I'm
good.
Do that over the holidays, probably.
Good. So I suspect that we will reference Bone Shaker on occasion today, since it is part of the context. We won't really be discussing it in depth, and I don't want to give away any spoilers for anyone. But if you have not read Bone Shaker and you haven't read anything else by Cherie Priest, I have to say that you have such a treat ahead of you, because she's a tremendous writer, and this is not a sophomore slump kind of book. She already had a lot of books under her belt before she started this series, so every installment is very strong. And one of the things I liked about Dreadnought is that it has pacing kind of like a train engine. So it's named for a train. And I hear you, Alicia, when you were like, oh, it's a little like slow getting started. I was honestly ruminating on that a bit when I was getting ready for book club today. I was like, it's like a train. You have this sort of slow lead time where the engine is gearing up, and then by the time it really gets going, it's like, forget sleep, forget anything, forget sitting. I was definitely pacing and listening to this dramatization, or pacing and reading the book periodically, because it was just so, the the momentum of the story was propelling me into momentum while I read it. So I kind of enjoy that pacing, whilst normally I don't necessarily want to have a Dickensian experience of taking a long time to get anywhere. It worked for me in this setting, so and I made you laugh, so I'm very satisfied now. That's all I need. Right, so for those who have not participated in the olden times in-person book club, as Lady June Squall is the only veteran here with me, and that's how we met, is actually over a discussion of Bone Shaker 13 years ago now, at the very first book club. So that first book was Bone Shaker. It's a great book. But one of the things I like to ask is, I often ask, is it steampunk or not? I don't really feel like we need to ask that about this book. It's so steampunk. But what I would like to ask you is, what was one of your favorite steampunk inventions or piece of tech or contraptions in the book? Because there's a lot of technology, from, as has been pointed out, it has everything. It has airships, it has trains, it has, a steamship, has all manner of things. So what was one of your favorite inventions in the book? Alan, would you like to get us started?
I'm maybe a bad one for this, because I thought that the trains that were dueling seemed to me particularly silly. I mean, I understood them in the concept of the book, and I understood them, but it seems like such an easy thing to take off. You just take your airships, you drop 2 bombs, and boom, the train's stuck in its tracks. And I didn't really understand in the big exciting duel at the end why the dreadnought didn't just destroy the tracks for the other train and stop the whole battle even before it started. That made zero sense to me, that they would worry about all this. So sorry for such a negative answer. I definitely enjoyed the steampunk aspects of it and the technology popping up, but that's sort of what struck me most about the story.
It's a good observation. And also, it's always all right not to like the thing. When we are maybe talking directly to the author, I try not to focus too much on what we didn't like, but it's just us chums. So if you didn't like it, that's all right, Alan. And it's a perfectly reasonable question. Why didn't they tear up those tracks?
So I didn't say I didn't. Well, I would say too much to say I didn't like it. It's just that was a little nit that has been bothering about, and a very enjoyable experience. So I've read many of the books, and I'll keep reading the ones I haven't read with the later parts of the series too. So
good. Thank you, Alan. Bill, your hand is up. Please share, my friend.
I think the reason that it worked that way is they were on parallel tracks. They weren't on the same track, because they were talking about how going through this pass, a whole bunch of rail lines converged, and there were multiple tracks going through and narrowing down. So they weren't actually on the same set of tracks until the very last minute.
I totally agree with that point. But regardless, they could have stopped a day before and torn up the tracks that they thought it was on and saved themselves a whole lot of trouble.
Yeah. But then we would have missed out on some of the drama at the trains, Alan. The drama.
I think it's was it Bullwinkle or Rocky who said, to be a hero you have to do a lot of stupid things.
That's true. That's great. Well, Bill, you're unmuted. What was one of your favorite little pieces of technology in the book?
The weird snow clearing device they had, that they sort of winched around to the front of the train to help deal with the snow and the zombies. That was bizarre. It's like a giant, meshing blades and things. real trains, they just basically have a plow blade on the front and they
Mhm.
just kick the snow off to the sides. So that was kind of a surprise. I was just expecting they'd have a plow blade, but
Right.
and that
No.
was intriguing and horribly messy.
So effective, so messy, and like wonderfully macabre in its way, right? Yeah. Thank you, Bill. All right, David, what about you? Did you have a favorite bit of technology in the
Mm.
book?
Well, I have to agree with Alan, and I didn't catch it until my third time through. I'm like, yeah, why didn't they just blow up the tracks next to them? That would have stopped the Cheyenne or the Shenandoah
Mhm.
in its tracks, literally. But like I said, it took me 3 times through to catch that. So,
Mm.
but snowblowers out west in the western United States are very much as they describe them. They're huge, size of the front of the train that they plow through these drifts with. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
not a fantastic thing. It's a very real thing.
Really?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So if you Google train snowblowers, you'll see it. They're as big as the engine, and they are just whirling blades. And yeah, if you're going to take out, 1,000 zombies, that's exactly what you use. So
The way
um,
to go.
I really liked after they crashed in the first airship, they're talking about walkers and how the Republic walkers are using diesel and the Confederate, or I'm sorry, the Yankee walkers are using steam. And I like the whole play of steam versus diesel technology because, 1880s
Mhm.
really wasn't happening here just yet, but I like the play of steam power versus diesel.
Yeah.
I like the technology aspect of that. Um, but yeah, walkers. I wish there had been more talk of walkers.
Right? Yes, absolutely. Could have used more walkers because they're
Yeah,
very
yeah.
fascinating.
So,
Yeah.
and then there, and somebody said it was slow to start, and it absolutely is until they crash, and then
Oof.
it's 100 miles an hour after that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that, like I said, that was another thing. It has everything. It literally has everything in this book.
So fun. Yes. Thank you, David. Cindy Joy, I can't help it. I just have to. I'm so sorry, Cindy. Just love your name together. So, what was one of your favorite bits
Fine,
of
you've been doing it
technology?
for years, and I
That's
never
true.
told you not to. So
It's true. It's been like a decade of me calling you Cindy Joy.
it has, at least.
Mm.
But yeah, so I really liked the walkers, which is like a repeat of David. But let's see. So what other?
You're allowed to repeat.
Yes, and the idea that the steam, I liked that she confronted the problems with steam technology with the walkers, um, the Union walkers not being able to go for very long because they would cook the operators.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was very well thought out, and that it's something that frequently gets ignored in steampunk novels.
Right. The
Yes, it's
dangers.
great, but yeah, how do you make the steam? You make the steam with fire. And what does fire do?
Sets things on
It
fire.
makes you not be able to use the technology in Arizona.
Oh, that's true. That's true. We are already on fire.
Yeah,
Ah,
it's yeah, it just adds a lot of heat. But yeah,
excellent.
the steam tech. I could have used some tea associated technology.
Yes.
You
Yeah,
know,
I miss tea time a lot, but it was it was like a flavor of steampunk that is much more about the gritty Borderlands experience.
yeah,
So,
and very war oriented too.
yeah, wonderful.
Particularly this novel.
Yes, more so than Bone Shaker.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you, Cindy. All right. Alicia, I don't think I've called on you. Something happened and everybody got shifted around on the screen. So if I skip over you for this question, please make sure I do not pass you by. All right, like raise your hand or whatever. Right, Alicia, have I called on you? Your favorite bit of technology?
I know you haven't.
Okay, good. It's your turn.
So, my favorite bit of technology. I don't know. I thought a lot of it was very interesting. I thought the armament on the trains was kind of interesting. I know it's not where they were going, but it kind of made it feel a bit like a battleship.
Yes.
A little bit. Not really, but it had that same feel, especially when they keep traversing the ends.
Yeah.
So I at least for those characters, it did seem a little claustrophobic.
Yes. Oh, that's a good way of putting
So
it.
It's not really a technology bit, but it was an interesting part of that part of the story when they're being attacked. That I had to kind of remind myself, no, they're in the middle of the West. They're on a train and there's space everywhere. But it made it feel very, and yet with the guns and everything going off, which you don't see on trains.
No, not you. Well, not these days, not usually.
No, but I thought it was an interesting use of, okay, you're going to have a train that's an armament, but you're also going to make it part of the story and have its own character and be an important part of the story.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh,
I think so.
Really. Yes. Oh, I love that. What a great observation. Thank you, Alicia. Laura, what about you? Do you have some thoughts on the technology?
I do. So I liked the dual fuel train idea with both the steam and the diesel. And that is actually a thing that some places have done, although it wasn't done as much here in the US. So I didn't know if that was something she had made up or not. So I looked it up and it was not. So I thought that was kind of cool. I also, you gotta love the airships. Always love the airships. So
yes. Yes. Well, and if you love the airships, then you definitely need to read Clementine, which is like 1.1. It's in between Bone Shaker and Dreadnought, and it's a novella length. It's wonderful though.
Awesome.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. All right, Karen, it is your turn, my friend.
Okay. Well, it was a bit of a trains, airships and steamships instead of planes and automobiles. I'm always a sucker for airships, I must admit. And I think they were pretty brave going over the war with the airship being able to be sighted. They must have been flying low enough, I know, to get shot down. And I'm sitting there going, you're going to get shot down. And they were shot down. So,
well, as soon as they were like, well, we decided not to bring our lights because they're so heavy.
I know. And then he had to crawl underneath to put the lights there. I'm going, oh my goodness, he's going to go. And the walkers reminded me a lot of Star Wars, and I must admit, I did like the two train thing, and I'm thinking maybe they didn't throw up the tracks because it would have been blowback by the time they were close enough to get them accurately. But yeah, I love airships, I must admit. And it was a shame that one had to end up in pieces.
Yes. Well, again, do check out Clementine for more airship goodness. I will say, for those who have not read Bone Shaker yet, that the way airships are used in Bone Shaker, as opposed to how they're used in Dreadnought, is a really interesting contrast. And I really enjoyed that change. So, yeah. All right, my darling June Squirrel.
Okay, well, airships. I mean, how can you resist airships? and I did read Clementine, but it's also in that compilation of her writings that's called Holy Terror, and I highly recommend that because it has Clementine and one other sort of steampunk and a whole.
You get a little pop-up that says we're going live.
So sorry.
And
pardon
here
me.
we are. So welcome to Book Club, everyone. Thank
Pardon
you
me, I
so
don't know
much
what's
for your
happening.
patience.
Pardon me.
Whilst
That is very weird. I'm not certain what happened. Can you hear me all right now?
Yes, we can hear
Thank
you.
you.
We can hear you twice.
Yeah, no, I'm just like la la la, listening to your wonderful conversation, trying to grab the link for the compilation, and suddenly we're hearing me on YouTube. So, everyone, I will post that link later so that we don't have that occurrence again. Please continue, June.
Well, she has a whole paragraph on why on writing steampunk and how she was dubbed the queen of steampunk and everything, and how she felt about it. But that's in the beginning of some of the compilations some of the stories that are in the compilation. But I highly recommend that Holy Terror. I mean, perfect for this month, But airships, I just have to say airships, especially Andon, I'm not sure, is it Clee? CLY?
Clay?
Is it C? But Clay, there's a woman named Clay.
Oh,
so
why?
Andon, he's the 7 foot tall guy who's with Briar Wilkes. Yeah.
Oh, right. God.
CLY.
I think he's in Ganymede. He's really featured in Ganymede.
Oh yeah. Yes, he is. Yes. I highly recommend Ganymede. I mean, submarines, how can you resist? And New Orleans.
And New Orleans, yeah.
Right.
No, I think in my head, I think I say Cly.
That's what I said too.
Yeah. So excellent. Yeah, thank you, Lady Squirrel. And also, this is all of us who've read the books, encouraging all of you who have not read the series yet to read the series because it's so good. Christina, favorite bit of technology, my friends.
I know it's a big surprise, but I'm going to join everybody else with the airships. I'm a sucker for an airship. I really enjoyed her start of the airship experience, that it really felt like going to a train station, but with that airship twist and the boarding process and seating and just getting into the nitty-gritty details of it was nice.
Yeah, it was lovely. And we read a book a couple of years ago that was really focused on airship combat. Bill, do you remember the name of that book? Ships of the Air? No. You're muted.
Goliath?
No, it was not. You're muted, my friends. Bill, you're muted.
The author's first name is Robin.
Robin Bennis.
Robin Bennis, yeah.
Yeah.
The second book is called By Fire Above. So the first one is Something Above.
Yes.
Something else above.
The Guns Above.
Guns Above. Yeah.
Thank you.
Those were really, really entertaining books.
Those are great. So if you
I highly recommend both of them.
Absolutely stunning. So if you are into airships, there's some of the best airship descriptions and I think airship combat in any steampunk book. Yeah, so definitely add that to your list. And thank you, Bill, because I'm like, I can see the cover, but I cannot remember the name or the author. All right, Robin, my friend, the Scone Mistress. What was your favorite bit of technology in?
I was actually, just as he said it, I was like, oh, the author's name was Robin. I remember that one.
And she was a wonderful interview too. She was a fantastic guest. So that book club meeting should be up on our YouTube channel already.
Yeah, I was actually looking through my Kindle and I'm like, I know I've got this book. I know I've got this book somewhere.
Yeah, thank you.
Look, I didn't get too far in, but one of the things I actually liked was the lack of technology. Like, especially she's working as a nurse. Like literally they're just like, oh, the Robertson, you know, hospital is really highly regarded, and like it's the hospital where like the most soldiers survive, and you have the woman running it, like extreme sanitation, boiling water, you know, blood isn't allowed on the floor. They got people wiping it up, like, and everybody is just like, oh, no idea, you know, this fantastic hospital. And the lady who's in charge of it is like, cleanliness, we must keep this place clean.
Yes.
And like
Yes.
that's literally the height of technology you have at that point, is
Mhm.
this idea that like keep the place clean. And you know, it's like this like foreign concept of like, oh, keep everything clean, change the bandages, you know, it's like, oh, you know, it's like that's the
Yes.
technology they had in terms of medicine.
Oh, I love that observation. That's a great observation. And I think it really plays into the tone of the book so much. And it inspires me to ask all of you. This is going to be more of a, if you have a thought, raise your hand question. But my feeling is that Sherry Priest uses technology, steampunk technology, really well by not ever overusing it. And so it's never just give people a weird gadget to have a weird gadget. Everything has a place and a purpose. And I know for some people, that's actually in the early days was a bit of a detraction. They wanted more tech, more weirdness. But I like this feature. So my question for you is, how do you feel? What do you think about the way in which Sherry Priest used technology in this book? Do you feel that it was a judicious use? Did you have a particular reaction to her choice to have a rather, minimal presence of weird technology? So, anyone have some thoughts? Yes, Karen.
Okay, so I'm not big on the Civil War, but it took a long time, right?
No,
So
it did not take a long
okay.
time.
In
It
this
took
one,
3 years.
supposed to have taken a while in this one, though, isn't it?
Yes, that we'll talk about the Civil War in
Yep.
but yeah, it's taking wildly longer in this.
So
Wildly
I got the
longer.
impression that in this book it's taking a long time. So if you think about it, the technology that they would be able to afford would be useful technology, because if you're going for a war that long, money goes off into stuff, and you can't just afford to have, unless you're really disgusting rich and not affected by the war, you're not going to be able to have lots and lots of different gadgets dripping around the place. So that's what I thought was, I was sort of glad she didn't have gobs and gobs of it, because I would have either got it for use in the war, like they were trying to do with the sap, and also, or melted things down, because those walkers and stuff and everything would have taken a lot of metal, and that would have been a very precious thing. So that was my impression, was I think it made it more realistic not having tons and tons of gadgets. And of course, the war always takes the stuff for the mechanics and the war machines, not the medical. So
Yeah. Thank
that
you,
was my
Karen.
thing.
David, I saw your hand up as well.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. It's not over the top steampunk. You don't have steam powered compasses and stuff like that. I would say there's zero fantasy to her books. And that continues through the whole series. But yeah, it's all very practical technology. It's all very, of the period technology. And it's another thing that I love about her books. She knows her history. And I don't want to ruin Ganymede, but if you know anything about the Hundley, you're going to freak out on Ganymede. Yeah, Civil War submarines. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes.
And it's all very practical technology. And I love the period that they're in. Yeah, Civil War, 4 years, 61 to 65, and it was over. In this, it goes on for like 25 years. I think they're in like the 20th or the 25th year of the war.
Yeah, it just goes on.
So yeah, she's taken, the transition from steam to diesel, and it's very practical. Probably the most fantastic part of the technology is the walkers.
Mhm.
Other than that, it's very practical, and I like that a lot. Like I said, she knows her history and she uses her history, and she very much incorporates it into the story on a very practical level. That being said, I love steampunk. I love steam powered robots, but there's none of that in her books. It's all very practical technology.
Mm.
And yeah, like I said, I'm a mechanical engineer. I like practical.
Oh,
So it works for
sure.
me. It really works for me. And like I said,
Absolutely.
her knowledge of history works, especially in Ganymede, works into the storyline. And it's just, I love her stuff. I reached out to her when I was reading Ganymede. I'm like, oh my God, this is going exactly where I thought it was going to go. So it's like, you mentioned Hundley. Yes. So yeah, this story, like I said, the technology is right on par with the era. There's no fantastic stuff. There's no real over the top steampunk stuff, which I love, but I also love how she incorporates actual technology into her stories.
Yeah, and sort of takes it to the logical progression
Right,
where it
exactly.
might go. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's diesel power, but we're gonna go a little bit diesel steam. So
Right.
yeah, that's what I really like about her stuff.
Love that.
Absolutely.
Anyone else have some comments or observations you'd like to add on this front?
I do. So
thank you, Cindy.
I liked the way that she balanced the technology. I thought it made it feel more realistic and more like it could have actually happened and less fantasy. Which I guess I'm just repeating David here, but
oh, that's all right. You get to talk it through from your own perspective and your own feelings about it.
But
So
yeah, I felt like there weren't any like frivolous gadgets, that everything was very much, it had a purpose, and it was yeah, and very much a war effort purpose, which is never my favorite thing, but yeah.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
very anti-war and like, but that's
yes.
Yeah.
No, I love what Karen pointed out, that during a war, especially a protracted war, that resources are going to be more dear, and likely, given the nature and the scope of the American Civil War, humans to do things like refine and mine for metals and resources were going to be very few and far between. So not only would you have less need and less resources to throw at the frivolous, you'd have fewer humans to make the frivolous possible. It gives me some vibes of rationing during World War II and that sort of thing.
So, but hearkening back to World War II, the thing that doesn't make sense is that they went ahead and flowed into the bustle era, which takes a lot of fabric.
Yes.
Which is frequently in short supply during a war. But so she's like mixing real history with, and so she's pulling it didn't pull me out of the story to have them flouncing around in bustles, which take just a gigantic amount of fabric.
Yes, but it's a point well made, and I think it's something that people who are not costume historians or don't deal with the costuming may not be aware of, but normally during a massive war effort, hemlines will change because there's less fabric.
Too. Fashion is so the fashion doesn't push forward as quickly during a war as it does during other times. Yeah, and making the Civil War drag out that long, oh my God, how were there any men?
Oh, well, right. Yeah,
and
good
why
question.
were they not drafting women to go out on the lines and shoot? Miss Clay would have been first to sign up.
I mean, yes, Miss Clay, I have many feelings about her. She's quite the character. So, They made them out of flour sacks, Karen. So Karen was asking, like when they made clothes out of sacks here in the United States, it was flour sacks. Yeah.
Flour sacks, and they would actually print patterns on the flour sacks.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
ingenious.
Yeah, and now you can buy quilts made out of those flour sacks that were made at the time for vast sums of money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm with you. No, not that's not where my money's going.
No. Any other observations on the use or non-use of fanciful steampunk technology in the book? Okay, well, let's talk a little bit about the Civil War, because you really cannot get away from it in this book in particular. So in Bone Shaker, it's mentioned, and you become aware in Bone Shaker that the Civil War has been running on for an obscenely long time, but you don't really have any insight why that's going on in Bone Shaker, because we're dealing with a much more tight little community, and I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but it's very much focused on Seattle in Bone Shaker. We just hear about the Civil War. For those of you who are not familiar with the American Civil War, as we mentioned, it was very brief, actually, but it was also incredibly bloody. And we are going to talk about the zombies, absolutely. Absolutely, we're going to talk about zombies, Lady June Squill. But let's talk a little bit about the Civil War as we're going into some of that fantastical, because the biggest change historically, beyond the technology being more advanced and more developed, the biggest change is that the Civil War did not end, is prolonged, and the Republic of Texas continues to be a republic rather than a state. All of the continuation of the American Civil War has this kind of add-on effect. How did you feel about seeing the Civil War kind of prolonged like this? And did you think that Cherie Priest handled it well? Bill, get us started.
So maybe I know too much about history, but the problem I had with the Civil War going for 20 years was at the start of the Civil War, the Union set up a blockade around the southern states, from Virginia all the way to almost to Mexico, all the way around Florida, and they had blockade runners who could bring some stuff in, but that choked off the South's ability to get materials. Also, the Union had a lot more soldiers to rely on than the South did, and towards the end they were really hurting, because there had been a practice partway through where they would exchange prisoners, and the Union realized this was not to their benefit, so they stopped doing it. And so the South was running out of manpower. So there were two big factors. They didn't have the resources, and they didn't have enough troops to keep fighting the war. So that was eventually going to end it, regardless of whatever else happened. So that gave me a moment's pause, but then I just got over it and kept reading.
That's great. I love how you're like, well, I paused for a moment and I had concerns, but then I liked the story too much, so I kept going. Exactly. I feel like it's sort of intimated that they're getting a lot of their support and supplies through the Republic of Texas, but I don't recall if they go into more details about how things are being prolonged in later books. But there's a lot of, like, we are not going to get into the depths of that in this book. And it is a real thing. Like, how are they able to keep going when clearly there is less and less, there are fewer and fewer people who are able-bodied and young enough to become cannon fodder. And so, and yes, and there's a lack of industrial development and funds to keep them going. So, yeah.
Right. It is, so, I mean, the technology at the time, if you were shot and survived, you probably weren't fit to fight anymore because you would have lost a leg or an arm, because they had these big lead bullets that lead, when it hits, spreads out. So it goes in small and comes out huge. And the reason they had so many amputations is not because they couldn't sew it back together, but there was a huge chunk of bone and skin missing, and they couldn't just create that. There was nothing they could do but cut it off. So that, I mean, that's another factor too. But and Texas was eventually cut off because the Union controlled the Mississippi with their ironclads. So yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. No, but it's
getting into
good.
the weeds on this, but yeah, that it's alternate history to begin with. So
yes,
it was a wonderful read.
And in Bone Shaker, we learn that the Russians still control the the Alaskan area, and the gold rush has not quite happened in the way it did. So there's a lot of these little things that didn't happen, and in part because the Civil War is prolonged, all of these things that happened in the latter half of the 19th century in North America simply do not have the context to happen. So it has this like really interesting sort of domino effect in the whole story. Any ironclads, we've got excitement over those ironclads. So David, what did you think about the handling of this extended Civil War in this novel in particular?
I thought it was really interesting, and I think that was the whole point of Texas, is that is how the South kept going, was that they were
oh, we lost David. Oh no, in the middle of his hopefully he will make it back, because now I'm curious to see what else he has to say, so fingers crossed. Anyone else have some additional observations about? Yes, Karen.
Okay, not knowing much about the Civil War, I wondered if she'd extended it to that fast because you're running out of people, and that was bringing on the need for using SAP and the zombies to get more manpower. That's what I was.
I don't know because the SAP and the zombies start in book 1, and so we have them in Bone Shaker. That's not very much of a spoiler because it's very early in the book that you learn about it, in like the first chapter or 2. So but I don't know if she intended that from the beginning, that there'd be a need for zombies to fuel the war effort, or if she got into book 2 and she's like, well, what would you do if you're running out of people who are alive? No, you get more. Well, and was it last year or the year before that we read Dread Nation, and like spoiler, if you haven't read it, zombies also feature in that book, and they also replace part of the manpower, as it were. As it were. So yeah, that's a good question, and I wish that Madam Priest were here to answer it for you, Karen, because it absolutely has a big impact on what that war can look like. And it goes to the question, like, why didn't they start sending women and recruiting women? If manpower is running out, how are they, resisting the inclusion of able-bodied women at this point? And why aren't women taking on more progressive roles in society? Or perhaps they are, and we simply don't get to see it as much. So, yeah, Lady Junesquill, do you have some thoughts? You're like...
I've been thinking about that, all that gold they were taking west. and how that was the most important part of the train. They kept dropping off stuff off the back, including a whole car full of bodies that died of the plague or of sap. And I was wondering what happened to when they cut that off and it went shooting back down the rails to, you know, they were already dealing with zombies that probably happened because an airship crashed that was full of sap. So now we've got a whole train car full of dead bodies that are full of it. And the gold. Was the gold going out to the west to buy more sap?
Yes, that's my assumption, honestly.
Yeah. But they were really protecting that gold, and it was kind of a shock when you found out that was why nobody could go up to that car at the beginning of the train.
Yes, and also sap is so terrible. It's such a horrible substance. But this is very resonant with the way in which the British Empire used opium in the Opium Wars. And substances like this absolutely were used for financial gain, for political gain. And so it's not shocking, but it is very distressing because the sap is it's terrible, right? So,
just some comments on the Civil War.
Yes.
Were black slaves freed in the South in this alternate history? I get the feeling they are.
This is a great question, Alan. And I feel like it's not really addressed very much in the book. We absolutely see that there are free people of color who are starting to have businesses. The lady with the restaurants sort of towards the beginning. And we're seeing that there is a semblance of Jim Crow in place, but there isn't a lot of discussion about how that history changed. Was it necessity? What was going on there? And I have a lot of questions about that. Laura, you had your hand up.
Mercy actually mentions at one point, I don't remember who she's talking to, but she says that almost every state in the South has changed that law, has made it so that the blacks are free because they just ran out of other people to do things. And so in order to fill all those roles in society, like we were talking about women taking on more men's roles, well, they had all of these slaves that they had to take on all of those roles. And so I think they said only 2 states are left that had slavery laws, and
it was Mississippi and Alabama.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Because I think that's like one of the reasons why they could keep fighting is they freed up.
But they also
enslaved people to handle some of the work.
Leaving Alabama were going to Texas, and they were basically. It sounded like how they did sharecropping, where they gave them like, oh, here's land, here, go ahead. But they gets the toil, and then if it doesn't work, oh well, you owe us money, etc. That's kind of what it sounded like they were implying.
Yeah, just because you're free doesn't mean you're near the top of the food chain. They were still very much at the bottom,
or that you're really, really free, right? So
yes, exactly.
Right, it's still very curtailed.
I would think that there would be like a
slaves
huge
are free. What are they fighting the war for 20 years over?
Oh, great question, Robin.
Yeah, I would think there would be a huge amount of political pressure from all of the other states in the Confederacy for those 2 states to free the slaves so that the war could stop finally. Don't you think?
I'm not sure that after 25 years and slaves being freed, it's even about slavery anymore. It's probably just about independence.
Well,
but it's not really discussed, why the war is going on, or why it even happened in the first place.
It was never entirely about slavery.
So I will say this. We're not going to get too much into the real history of the Civil War, the American Civil War, not too much. It's very dire history. It's terrible. But I think that there's a moment in the book where the character mentions that at this point, it's really more about like the individual grudges or people being attacked by, you know, the people across the other line, or sort of having loyalty to your family or loyalty to your town or loyalty to your state, rather than think of the big picture questions. Of course, war is always about who is well, maybe I shouldn't generalize too much. War is often about who is profiting. At least that will sort of tend to prolong a war effort if people are really making a lot of money out of the chaos or the violence or what have you. But I am very careful to never sum up the Civil War as being not really about slavery, because it was really about slavery. So, but this Civil War seems to have gone on past the point of slavery. So it's clearly about more things than that, and it's more complicated. And I would love to pick Madam Priest's brain about it, but hopefully as the series goes on, we can learn more. So
Just one more
yes.
comment.
Yes,
So
Alan.
then the sap is generally not seen as, I don't think zombies are seen as a weapon in as sort of a weapon. I think that sap is mainly seen as like poison gas was in World War One. And that's like a pretty constant in this book and in other books as well. Like Clementine has that as a theme as well. It wasn't so much in Dreadnought. It was differently used than in Bone Shaker, not as a weapon. But in terms of the Civil War, both the North and South saw sap as an offensive weapon, very similar to poison gas.
Yeah, they're both clearly using it.
Yeah.
David, thank
Done.
you, Alan. That's a great addition. David, we missed you. Welcome back. You were in the
Thank
middle
you.
of saying some really
I know.
interesting-
I'm on a work computer. I had a hard reboot at 8:30. Apparently, I thought I got around that, but
Oh,
stupid IT guys. So yeah, I'm sorry I missed the conversation because
that's all
it's
right.
excellent, absolutely
Thank you.
excellent.
Thank you.
So it's you guys are basically encompassing everything I love about this story. So yes, sorry I had to drop out, but I'm glad I'm back.
Welcome back, my friend. All
Thank you.
right. Well, Alicia, I saw your hand go up. Please add to the conversation.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that because it's the Civil War, it's very easy, even though it's an alternate history, to make one side the bad guy, because it's easy to do that. And I think one thing that she did is she made them both the bad guy in different ways.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't, yes, it is absolutely about slavery. The Civil War really is, but if it as you pointed out earlier, if it lasts that long, at that point it's really not. But when she's talking about the different sides and their commitment to it, they're both wrong.
Yeah. Yes.
And they're both wrong. They're kind of both right on some things, but I thought she did a really good job of walking that line of not weighting it to one side or the other, which I think because was my big fear when I started. It was like, oh, this is going to be, and it wasn't. And I really liked that she, yes, the Civil War had to happen. Yes, it's wrong. Yes, it's about slavery. And yes, it sucked.
Yes, it was awful
for
everyone.
But
yeah,
it was a good, and I understand why it's so commonly used as an alternate version of American history.
Yeah.
A little timely right now, but that's a different story.
Yes, it is.
Discuss that.
No, yeah,
but
I
like
observation.
I liked that balance of the two sides and not weighting it.
Yeah, no, thank you for framing it that way, because I think that's a really good way of looking at it. And also, I think it's an important thing to add that Cherie Priest is from the Southeast, grew up there, born and raised there. That is the land of her family, and she grew up probably really steeped in hearing a certain version of Civil War history that gets taught a lot in that part of the world. And she's bringing a lot of nuance to that conversation with how she's reframing it on an individual level with the individual characters in the story, rather than looking at what were the generals doing, what is the geopolitical situation. We're just looking at how these people trying to survive are enduring this experience, and it helps pull it away from those more meta questions and into how the like people on the ground are actually suffering and how it's impacted their lives, which I thought was really interesting. Oh, and Bill, would you like to share your comment here about Killer Angels?
Oh, yeah, I just added it into the chat. The novel Killer Angels by Michael Shara. Michael Shara.
Yeah.
Also does a really good job of walking that line of not vilifying one side or the other. They just present them all as people.
Yes.
In the middle of this horrible battle, the Battle of Gettysburg. But the difference is that, Cherie does sort of makes them all basically have questionable morals, whereas in Killer Angels it kind of go the other way somewhat. They're not painting anybody as all good or all bad. It's all layers of gray. So
yeah.
That's, I don't know if you guys touched on it when I was gone, but that's the other thing that I like, was there's a certain amount of political intrigue with this story. It's a train full of gold and deeds, and we're going to hire the Chinese to fight for the North. And yeah, and she does that with, I think, just about all of the books that she writes that touch on the Civil War. There's a certain amount of political intrigue, and that's just another element to this story. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, also with Killer Angels, I think part of the reason for the tone is that it is sort of a biography of the Civil War. It's a little different than the film, but yeah, it definitely is meant to be more historical, where this book is alternate history.
Yes.
So I think that's probably why she could play with the tone a little bit more than.
Yeah, and there was definitely parts of that in the story. Like I said, there was a certain amount of racial tension between the characters. Even the ones that were from the North, weren't exactly hospitable to the freed slaves and the Black characters in the story.
Definitely
Civil War.
If you haven't read the books, read them. I think what's the second one? I don't remember. I'll think of it at like 2 a.m. But Killer Angels is the first book, which takes place, which is Gettysburg itself, is the lead up to Gettysburg, and it is the book from which the film Gettysburg is made. But yeah, and I can't remember. The second book is the end of the war.
Gods and Generals, says Bill, is the second.
Yes. I knew Bill would know it.
So, please, as a reminder, please always feel free to share any of the books you think might be pertinent or might be good continued reading in either the Facebook group or on Discord, because we're all readers here and we all want new book recommendations for our never-ending TBR pile. So, right. So, we've got this extended Civil War. We have like the sort of domino effect of how it's impacted the general shape of North America and the formation of the United States as we know it today. We We are not looking at a 50-state situation at this point, maybe ever, in the way that this world is developing, right? And you have mentioned a couple of times the question of the racial tension, and all of these things are coming into play around our characters to build the world. And I think that the world building is very rich, but for Cherie Priest's books, I think that the characters are always the most important element of the story. She really creates amazing characters. And not to take too much of a hard left turn from the very serious topic of the Civil War, because it is very important to the story and to American history, clearly. But I am curious, because I am that way, who was your favorite character out of this book? I mean, we've got such a passel of characters who are, you know, morally gray, very charming, less charming, terrible. Like, who did you like? Christina, would you like to share who you like so far in the story?
Oh, it's Mercy, hands down. She is just, she takes charge. She gets stuff done. She doesn't have to be the most, beautiful in the room or the most interesting of everyone, but when shit hits the fan, she is
Well, she
getting
is a
things done.
magnet. She is a
Yes,
magnet.
she is, but she's prepared to handle the onslaught.
Yeah.
On the train when there's bullets flying and all the passengers are freaking out. She's like, "Everybody get down, get your bags!" Like, and then even to the point where the captain's like, "They listen to you better than me. Go take care of it."
She's so good. And a very I think, for all that she's a complicated character, that she treats everyone with kindness and respect, and that makes her a very good character, which I liked a lot. Chuck, my friend, who is one of your favorite characters?
I have to agree that Mercy is quite the she's always shooting from the hip pocket and telling you what's going on and not afraid to get in there and get up to her elbows and what's going on and getting things fixed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
from
she's
the very
definitely
first scene, she's
Mhm.
like getting messy if she has to. Yeah.
Yeah, just to get a watch out of the laundry. Yeah,
Right.
just to make this guy happy and just to do the right thing. You know, that's the kind of person I like to read about. Very good heroine.
Yeah, she's great. Thank you, Chuck.
Mhm.
My darling Lady June Squirrel, what about for you? Who is one of your favorites?
Is
Oh
I'm
no!
no, it's okay. I'm
Okay,
doing
good.
this on my iPad, so I have to go and pull down a list of what's what up on the top. And anyway, well, my favorite character, again, I say, was the Ranger, Horatio Corman, because he's not really allied with the South, even though he's from Texas, which is supposed to be supporting the Southern effort. And he also shows up in other books. In fact, all of the other books, I think, except maybe, I don't think he's in Bone Shaker, but he's in all the other books. And so I liked him a lot. And of course, I also like, even though they're not in it much, Briar Wilkes as the sheriff
Yes.
of Seattle.
Oh
And
my goodness.
yeah, she's great.
She's
And
great.
her boyfriend, the 7.5 foot tall Andon. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's a few mentions of Grog. And he's an interesting character. I have a cat. The dog just jumped on me. Sorry. Hey Fiona. Hey Fiona. Hey Fiona. You want to be on television?
Maybe. Hello, Fiona.
Yeah. Good old Fiona. Anyway, so some of these side characters were although obviously Mercy is an interesting character.
She's a fantastic main character. She is, but
and she's going to see her dad, Swackhammer, who
yes.
who is very much in the first book in Bone Shaker. So that's how he gets injured enough to want to call for her.
Right. So, for those of you who have not read Bone Shaker yet, you will have like a little dramatic irony from reading Dreadnought going in. You'll know some things will work out that you would not otherwise know are going to work out. But our Sheriff Wilkes, we meet her first in Bone Shaker and we learn so much about her. She's also a great character. Laura, who was one of your favorite characters?
Well, I already said Mercy is definitely my favorite, but I liked some of the other ones too. I liked the Ranger, and I liked Miss Clay. I liked that for a while that I thought she might be the spy on board. And she just always is, you know, she's ready to take charge, get in there. But she's just not as nice as Mercy. And so because she hasn't built the rapport with some of the other characters, she doesn't have the same kind of authority backing her as Mercy does. So
yeah. She's a great character though, Miss Clay. She's delightful. She's delightful in that acerbic sort of way when you first meet her. It's like, oh, I think I want to be your friend, but also you're kind of mean.
Yeah. I love the scene where she stole the Ranger's gun.
Yes.
Near the end.
That's a great scene. That's a great scene. Mercy's reaction to that whole bit is also really funny. Yeah. Thank you. All right, Scone Mistress, did you have a favorite character so far?
I mean, I really like Mercy, but I also really like how all the like just NPCs, like even if it's just like a person that she's meeting on the street is selling newspapers and has a conversation, like she manages to give them like character. Like even if you just have them for like a page or two, you actually like, I'm a big visual reader. Like I visualize in my head me reading a book, avidly hallucinating for hours. It's like I get a sense of who these people are and I can build an image in my head, which that I did like a lot.
Yeah. She has a wonderful ability to create really vivid characters, which I will say, having read quite a few of her books, that carries through in all of her books. So if you like that, it's in all of her writing. It's really good. Yeah. Cindy Joy, who's one of your favorite characters?
So many, but yeah, I really liked it. I'm much in line with Robin here that there were many great characters in the book, and the side characters were a lot of fun. But I think Horatio Corman was probably my favorite character, just because he insinuated himself and manipulated things but stayed out of it at the same time. He was an intriguing character, as it were.
He is. I'm so happy that he comes back and we see him again. And I clearly have to reread all of the books because it's been a while, but he's a fantastic character.
And I
Alan,
really like who Sheriff Wilkes turned out to be.
Yes, I love her as a character, and it was really good to see her again. So yeah. Alan, what about you? Who was one of your favorite characters?
Mercy, I really enjoyed spending time with, and the insane sociopath scientist. He was pretty fun to hang out with, as he protected his bodies and thought that somehow he would do the world good by making a weapon out of sap.
Yeah,
he's fun to hang out with.
Not good to invite to real, actual in-person tea, but a wonderful villainous character.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Thank you. No,
You're
not someone
welcome.
I'd ever want to meet in real life, but yes.
No, a question I used to ask back in the olden days was like, who did you love to hate in this book? Who was so good at being a villain that you just loved them for their villainous qualities? And I feel like this scientist is one of those characters where he's
Was there any others that you really hated in the? I don't think there were many that I really hated in the book, other than than
No.
that character. Yeah.
No, not in this book. And in other books, of course, but
Yes.
yeah, he's the main like despicable kind of figure. Yeah. Great, Alan. Thank you for bringing up our bad guy there. Yeah. David, what about you, my friend?
Mercy is definitely low key badass, no doubt about it. But I gotta agree, Horatio Corman, the dude's a cowboy. He's just a freaking cowboy. And you guys were talking about costuming and things like that. And one thing that I need to reach out to Sherry and say, hey, was he wearing a cowboy hat or a top hat? She mentions his hat, but she never says what kind it is. I always see Horatio Corman in my mind. He's Sam Elliott.
Oh,
he's Sam Elliott with the cowboy hat and wheel guns. And yeah, I liked his character. How, like I said, pragmatic. He's like, I don't care. I just want to get to Utah. That's all I want. And he wasn't, he didn't. That was his lane. He stayed in his lane. And plus he's a cowboy with wheel guns.
Plus he's a cowboy. No, now that you say it, I will forever after hear him as Sam Elliott. I think.
Yeah, you have to. You absolutely have to. He's Sam Elliott. I mean, he
that's
really
so perfect.
is. Yeah,
that's really excellent. Fantasy casting there.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's see. Now, I know I've hit most people. All right, Karen, who is one of your favorite characters?
One?
It's loose here. If you want to share a couple, that's fine.
So Mercy was capable, strong, and she just got in there and did things, and I could almost see her eye roll every time she'd gone, someone's got to do it. That's what I saw in my head. I did like the Ranger. He's a Ranger. I was going to ask, is he in the other books? And you've answered the question, so that's good, because I think that would be a good one. I never did trust Miss Clay. I thought she was a spy for a while, and I'm wondering whether she's going to turn up as a spy somewhere down the track. And I must admit, I would have liked to have seen more of Larson and Dennis and their two-way, they're bouncing off each other, because I thought they were hilarious, and I really was sad when they left.
Yeah. So, we spent some time with a few characters over the series of the book, or the course of the book. They are so fun, and we just are briefly with them, but they're wonderful. I can't remember who said this, but was that you, Alicia, where even a short interaction with a character, the character is so interesting and well developed and well fleshed out. Is really great.
I'm loving her D&D references when she's describing things too.
Yes. So Christina, did I start with you? I think I started with you. Yes. All right. So we're coming up on the end of the time. I was like, oh, we've got 30 minutes left. And I was like, no, we don't. Not really. So, but this has gone so fast and has been such a lovely conversation. But I wanted to offer, if anyone would like to ask a question of the group, that you have a question for us about the book, or a last burning observation. And Bill is like Johnny on the spot. Bill, please.
So in Mercy is a fantastic character. She is wonderful, and I loved her, and I think she is my favorite character of the bunch. But the question I have is, Mercy is, a no-nonsense person who just gets things done. That person always seems to be a protagonist. Can anyone think of a book where the no-nonsense person is actually a villain?
Oh. I feel like I've absolutely read those books, and I cannot think of one at the moment.
The Master in Doctor Who.
Oh, the Master in Doctor Who. Yeah.
In that last season with
Peter Capaldi.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was also thinking the old Master back from the original, the old series too.
Him too. Yes.
Yes. I love the old Master.
I thought she very much pulled a lot of the Robert Cavallo's version of the Master, and also the guy currently I think. Is just like, just get out of my way. I need you to do, and you're annoying me.
Yes. Oh, yeah, but that's a great question, Bill, because I feel like I've read books where the villain is really someone who's like, listen, there's a problem. I have a very straightforward solution. No one is taking care of it. You may not like my method, but I'm getting things done. And
I
yeah.
mean, it's a quality we authors certainly associate with someone who is the good guy, the hero of the story, the protagonist. And we've certainly seen examples of people like that in real life who are very practical, down to earth, and are just vicious bastards. So
yeah,
I just
well,
find it interesting that that's not done more often.
Well, that was
Or
Malvern
even as a
Purdue,
sort of a
though.
switcheroo where you think they're the good guy, but they're not.
Well, that was Malvern Purdue.
Malvern,
He was
yeah.
single focused on protecting his technology, the
Mhm.
sap and the bodies, and he made no bones about that was his whole job.
That's fair, but I dispute that that's focus. That's not necessarily someone who is practical and no nonsense. That is just someone who's very, very focused on what they're doing.
Yeah, you could say that. He's
Yeah.
I mean,
obsessed.
I
Yeah.
get your point. I absolutely I agree, but I think there's like a hair's breadth difference there in what I'm sort of going for and what you were talking about.
No, I get what you're going for, but like I said, that was kind of his character.
Mhm.
This is my job. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to protect this caboose no matter what, which made him the bad guy.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
his mind, he was right. He was absolutely right. To a
Yeah,
fault. He
he's doing
was
what
right.
he needs to do. Yeah.
Um,
Oh, what a great question, though, Bill. Yeah, now I'm like, oh, somebody please put
I
together
cheated.
that
How
list.
about Severus Snape?
Oh, Snape. Oh, Snape.
Someone
Mm.
very competent, but not a good guy. Well, maybe not entirely a good guy.
That's debatable, right?
Yeah,
Snape is
you
very
could
complicated.
debate that either way, that because he was, spoiler alert,
Well, he
ultimately
certainly wasn't a protagonist, though.
ended up
But
being, on the right side, but
Yeah.
boy, getting there, the path of getting there, he made a lot of, shall we say, questionable choices.
He did. Yeah, boy.
he
Oh,
got stuff done.
he
He
did.
did.
What?
He
It's a
did.
great example.
Except getting appointed to the Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, which is what he always wanted.
Oh, poor Snape. Yeah. So, but great example, Alan, of exactly that sort of character who is like going to get things done, whatever needs to be done. He's going to make it happen. And he's very morally ambiguous at the very least. So, any other last question for the group as we are, wrapping up here? Yes, Alicia.
I posted in the comments earlier, but because the train plays such a part in the in the book, it's just it kind of has its own character and its own presence. So would you consider the book gothic horror or not?
Oh,
because it is such a big part of it. And then because there's something ominous in that back thing. Now I know it's zombies. I haven't gotten that far, but it's something terrible and something awful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I am curious what everyone else has to think, because I definitely have some thoughts about that. Do you think, is this also gothic horror?
I don't think it's gothic horror, but I think it's definitely a steampunk / horror.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
And,
anytime you add zombies, is it not horror?
Yeah.
I did feel like the train was its own character as well. And if that makes it gothic horror, then it's gothic horror.
Mm-hmm.
Because the train really, it was its own character.
Yeah, it's really got its own presence on the stage, on the And no wonder the book is named for the train. Although, spoiler, each of the books is named for something significant in the story. So
I love
Yeah.
how she introduced it
mhm.
in the story. It was kind of in the background. It wasn't Dreadnought. It was,
Yeah.
it was very much in the background when they crash. It's like, oh, that's the Dreadnought. And you just hear the whistle of the Dreadnought, and that's all you get of the Dreadnought
Right.
until she actually gets to see the Dreadnought. It was
Yeah.
very subtle. It was, I love the way she wrote that. Absolutely.
Yeah, it felt like it was a palpable like building up of like the
Right.
anxiety around this, and it made its final, introduction to our main character even more portentous because of
Right.
that way she sort of
Mhm.
Yep.
slowly peppered details in.
Yep.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, I love how she does it at night in the woods. All you hear of it is the whistle.
Nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then when she finally gets to see it, yeah, absolutely. I love that. There again, that's how she writes, and I love how she writes that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and all the soldiers reacted like the dreadnought was.
Oh, hi, Mom.
into
I'm
it.
on the phone.
Please go ahead, Cindy.
Yeah, so when you encounter the dreadnought, when the dirigible crashes, all the soldiers act like the dreadnought is a character unto itself.
Mm-hmm.
And, a force to be reckoned with, irregardless of or regardless of what's going on with the people on the train.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got a really bigger than life reputation. Bill, what are your thoughts?
I don't think it ticks enough of the boxes to be gothic horror. I mean, I get what you're saying about how it does kind of lean in that direction, but I think it just doesn't quite get there.
Yeah.
So one of the things I was observing about this series as I was been rereading Bone Shaker and Dreadnought and listening to the audio dramas is how much it reminds me of that kind of claustrophobic gothic vibe of like Vampire the Masquerade role-playing game and anything like that, where the world is just sort of more dark, more gritty, more grim. Things are harder than the reality at the time even. And I think that does play into a little bit of that gothic vibe. But also Sherry Priest started out with writing gothic horror and has continued with writing gothic horror since this series. And so I think some of that is coming through in her style and the way she builds up the portentous nature of certain portions of the story and characters. And I like those gothic elements personally. So yeah.
Well, because I know her from her horror stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, wait, this is that Sherry Priest. It's got to be. So I go and look it up. I'm like, oh, it is that Sherry Priest.
It is that Sherry Priest. Absolutely. Yeah.
So going from a different angle, are the sap victims, does the sap convert them to supernatural? Because that would be another route into calling it gothic horror if the zombies were supernatural. Are they supernatural or subnatural?
They're biologically natural.
Yeah, so Lady June Squirrel says Ganymede is definitely gothic horror, so that's something to look forward to.
Wait, how was that? How was Ganymede gothic horror? And I'm not a gothic horror person, but to me, Ganymede is just Dreadnought except underwater.
I would say that anything that has Marie Laveau in it is gothic horror.
And it is in New Orleans, so
fair point. I'll allow it.
So, Cindy, I don't know if I can answer your question properly. I can't remember whether you've read Bone Shaker or not, but there's some information about the origin of the sap, and it's
Yeah, I read Bone Shaker this month.
Yes. Oh, right. Okay. So I think David maybe is like biologically enhanced.
Yes.
So
Yeah, it's a
if you're
biological
using it,
agent, so
yeah,
it's
if you're
not supernatural at all.
okay, but if you're using a drug to convert someone to something supernatural, you could say Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde was, yeah.
You could, but to me, it's more there again, it's how she writes. It's pragmatic. It's a chemical that changes, how they are, and it's very biological. It's very pragmatic. It's not, there's nothing supernatural about it at all. I don't think. I think it's very much just a biological agent that turns people into zombies.
So, but viruses, zombies are almost always portrayed as being, a virus or some kind of chemical that interacts with the body in a way that turns them into zombies.
Yeah, but they
I
don't.
don't think it is.
These are definitely slow zombies. They're not fast zombies. They're not supernatural. You can definitely kill them. So to me, they're very practical zombies. They're not. Gosh, I'm trying to think of some supernatural zombies, but to me, it's very practical. It's a biological agent that changes them into zombies. And yes, they can be killed. They're not Superman zombies.
They're not 28
which
days
again, that's what I
later
like about her
zombie.
writing. It's very pragmatic. It's not fantastic. It's it's not fantasy zombies. It's okay. These people, they got exposed to this biological agent, and it did this to them, but they're still, you can still kill them.
Yeah. Although I do love what Bill says, they're not that slow.
Yeah, true. That's true.
But no, I think that's a really interesting question, and I certainly don't feel like I have an answer to it. Are they supernatural? Are they magical? Is this more like the biological warfare sort of aspect? The actual origin of sap is still like a little mysterious. So we know, for those of us who have read Bone Shaker, we know once it comes, but we don't know why it exists in some profound ways. So, but don't let them bite you is very important, as Lady June Squirrel says. So these are not friendly zombies, and you do not want to be bitten by them, and you do not want to use the sap. So, but more on all of that. If you enjoyed Dreadnought, do read Bone Shaker. Give Clementine a try. Read the entire series. Sherry Priest does a wonderful job with the whole thing. And she also wrote the fantastic duology, starting with Maplecroft, about Lizzie Borden and her sister. It's very Lovecraftian and very creepy and a little bit more, I think, more gothic horror than steampunk. But you can certainly make an argument that it's steampunk adjacent. So it's a good read for the spooky season. Now, next month, we're going to be reading something a little bit more fantastical, a little sweeter, a little cozier, as we're getting into the cozy time of the year. And that is thank you, Secrecy, Sorcery, and Cecilia, or The Story of the Enchanted Chocolate Pot. It's by Carolyn Steve Meyer and who's the other author, Bill? Patricia C. Reed.
Patricia Reed.
Thank you. It is out of print, so getting a physical Dead Tree version of the book is very tricky, but it's available as ebook, which is how most of us have access to it. It's a wonderful, charming epistolary novel that has much lower stakes than the current series. So I hope you will come back and join us. That will be the third Sunday of the month. Yes, Bill.
Just an FYI, if any of you have used Alibris before, a website that basically collates people selling, used books. There are a number of copies of this book, of next month's book, available.
Excellent.
Many of them are very inexpensive.
Excellent.
You still have to
Thank
pay
you.
shipping though, but that's definitely an option if you prefer the Dead Tree over an ebook.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bill. So book club will be on the 17th of November at 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, which is Seattle time. For those of us who live in Arizona, that means it'll be 5:30 our time starting in November, as the rest of the country does daylight savings time hijinks. But for anyone who's not in Arizona, please remember always to tie your timekeeping to Seattle time. And Karen, your time should not change. It should continue to be what it is right now. So, all right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for book club. I hope you will come back. David, it was so lovely to meet you and to have you with us. Bill, could you put the title of the book in the comments for Chuck? I did a terrible job of articulating it, Chuck, so we'll get that up and posted. And
Could I ask a real quick question?
Yes,
of the group?
absolutely.
So I love Dreadnought. I love the whole Bone Shaker series. I also like C.I. Chevron stuff. What else has Sherry written that I might like?
Maplecroft.
Okay. Okay.
If you don't mind a little Lovecraftian horror, it's
Oh no, I'm all with that. That's good.
yeah, it's a wonderful duology.
Okay.
If you like urban fantasy, she did a great duology vampire stories with a like vampire bounty hunter that starts with Bloodshot. I really like that. I have not read her gothic horror as much because frankly it's so terrifying. I cannot get through it. But she has quite a bit of gothic horror out there as well.
Thank you.
So yeah, you are quite welcome. Excellent. All right, I'm going to take us off live. So everyone who's watching us on YouTube now or later, thank you for joining us. We do book club every month except for March and December. March because a bunch of us go to Wild West Con, and December because there are like holidays or something happening in that month. It's very busy. I can't keep up with it. So we have one more book club this year, and that is November. And again, it's the 3rd November of the month. So I hope you will enjoy us and join us for Sorcery and Cecilia, or the Enchanted Cocoa Pot, Chocolate Pot. Oh my gosh. Yeah, it is Sorcery and Cecilia by Patricia Reed and Carolyn Stevermeyer. Do not rely on me to get the title completely right, but do join our Discord or our Facebook group. We would love to see you there. All right. Cheers, everybody.